少見諸仏せせご門法華経五種不退菩薩道失笑無用大菩提何し功徳不入を一切が東洋主上海具成仏道。 Good evening. I'd like to talk about Zen meditation. Not only Zen, we have 4 different types of meditation in Mahayana Buddhism. In all Buddhism, we have 7 different way of meditations. Tonight, I'd like to introduce you some of them. As you know, the Buddhist wisdom or Buddha's wisdom came from very deep, profound meditation. Therefore, it is quite different from ordinary human knowledge. Knowledge and wisdom are quite different. Now, I explained to you before about knowledge and wisdom. So, the knowledge is knowable. How much knowledge you have, that everybody knows. But wisdom is unknowable. So, wisdom is innate. That's nature. And knowledge is acquired, accumulated by our experiences. If we had no experiences, we have no knowledge. We know nothing. We have no knowing anything. Knowledge is, it's subjective. That my knowledge, your knowledge. Knowledge is the subject knowing objectivities. So it is a dualistic. But wisdom, in our wisdom, there is no subject, no I, no self. Therefore, no objectivities. That's I know this flower. I is subjective or subject. Flower is objective. At that time, flower is only concept of subject. So the the object cannot attain to the object itself. Now that's subject, or self, experience this object with seeing, with touching, with smelling, and with judgment. So make subject or self, that produce own concept or image of this flower in our mind. That is our knowledge. Of course, we cognize it. That is our knowledge, but wisdom is different. In our wisdom, there is no I. There is no knower. There is no known. So, it is not, that we have no necessary. We don't need to produce our concept of the object in our mind. That is our knowledge. Anyway, I like to talk about those difference someday in the future. Today, I like to talk about that relation between wisdom and meditation, because wisdom and meditation is very basic capacity of the people. But most of people do not know they have wisdom. That is very, very, that's contradictory. So what is the meditation? Meditation is, that we pacify our mind. But nobody what mind is. You don't know about your mind, where it is, when it is. But the people have a concept of your mind. That the concept of mind is not mind itself. Just like that, I know this flower, but my knowing is my concept of this flower. So, no, my knowing is not this flower. No, it is my concept. So I can bring it, my concept home. No, but flower is still here. So concept of a thing is not a thing. Concept of self is not self. But most of people do not know this. So people understand everything exists by itself, independently. No, this is a big human ignorance, human stupidity. We have to change it. We have to switch from realism to the interdependency. Everything exists relatively. Not only relatively, it must be interdependent. The related, each other, like this, the self or subject and the object exist dependent each other. This depend on subject, depend on object. Object depend on subject. So, they are, one but two. Two but one. Very difficult to understand by the human mind, because human mind is always dualistic. Dualistic. Subject exists by itself. Object exists by itself. So they have no relationship. That is ordinary realism. I exist without you. I exist without world. World exists without me. That is realism and dualism, both of them. individualism. You know, the most common human stupidity are three. You know, three. One is realism, realistic point of view. Next is dualism. Everything, that's how to say. I explain, what is dualism later. This is a little complicated to explain. And the individualism, that is easy. Most of people, understand it. This is the Western, that's, how to say, traditional, philosophy. The true existence is individual. What is individual? We cannot divide it anymore. We cannot, divide this flower. If we put, that apart, it is not a flower anymore. Therefore, flower, this is the smallest unit. We call it individuality. I am an individual. You are individual. Because we cannot, analyze or separate, myself into the piece. If I cut my foot, hand, foot, neck, it is not I myself anymore. So this is the smallest unit of existence. That is individualism. But this is, that's a very primitive realism. We have to change it. It has so many contradictions in it. Anyway, that's meditation. Is very important and necessary for everyone. Because our mind is always evolving and changing. Even 1 second, it doesn't stay still. So, therefore, we don't know what mind is. Mind is changing all the time, So, there is no, form, no characteristics, no, activities, because very short moment, even very, very short moment, it doesn't, exist, changing all the time. Just like I myself came in a few minutes ago, but that I is not same I, I'm, to that, who is talking here now. I'm always changing, Even 1 second, I cannot stay in the same stage, same state. I'm changing, getting old, always. So, which one is the real I don't know. This flower is also changing so rapidly. When I see it, and it becomes my memory and my knowledge, then the next moment, it's a different flower. It changes into other flower. My memory, is not the same flower to this one. Now. It's changing all the time. Not only flower, everything is like this. So we cannot catch it. We cannot cognize it. We cannot know it. When we see it, next moment, it's a different state. And changing all the time. I cannot grasp it. Each moment, it's different flowers. how do we understand anything? But when we, stop our concept, we stop our mental activities, then we, stop our, that's grasping desires. So, that we, make our mind still. Then we forget our objectivities, our self, our subject. At that time, all objects comes into our subject. When I have no mind, this whole universe comes into me, and I myself, become the universe. Universe and I, world and I, become united. That is wisdom. And that, the conduct is called meditation. Therefore, meditation and wisdom, meditation is called dhyana or jhana or zen. We have some other, terms. Prajna or prajna, that is wisdom. Wisdom and meditation are inseparable. They are one but two, two but one, just like our body and mind. Our mind and body are one but two, two but one. But the people only, knows difference, aspect, differentiation, or that's how to say distinctive, how to say distinction. It's not identity or equality. So they must be one but two. There is no such logics in the Western world. No, there is one but two, two but one. This logic is only in the Buddhist logic. Death and life are two but one. But one but two. East and West are two but one. One but two. Because when there is no East, no West. When there is no West, there is no East. They depend on each other like this. When this exists, it needs, this existence of this. When this exists, it is necessary to expect existence of this one. Otherwise, this cannot exist. East and West are expecting others, each others. That is called the doctrine of interdependency, or doctrine of co-relativity. That is, very basic doctrine of, or in Buddhism. We have no such theory or doctrines in any places, in any religions, or in any philosophies. Recently, some very few scientists are becoming to understand, but not yet so clear. Sooner or later, all human beings will understand this kind of dependency. This is that's more developed than Einstein's relativity theory. Anyway, now we have two kinds of illusion, most of human beings. One is emotional, illusion, like greed, anger, and conceit, jealousy. That's emotional, it's, the perversion. And in another hand, we have, some kind of ignorant point of view. That is lack of wisdom, lack of reason. What are they? They are, realism and dualism, nihilism, and egoism, and individualism, etc. We have many, many more. So, that meditation is a very good medicine to destroy, misconception of emotional, mistaken idea. And at the same time, the wisdom, prajna, is very good for destroy our lack of wisdom, our reasons, inverted point of view. So we need both of them, meditation and wisdom at the same time. We cannot separate into two all the time. But some person or some schools emphasize one side, Zen. I am a Zen school. No, there is no Zen school. I am a wisdom school. No. Wisdom cannot exist without meditation. Meditation cannot exist without wisdom. Wisdom and meditation are just like back and front. I have no hand without front. I don't know which is front. This is front. Temporarily I call it. I name it. So I have no hand without a front. But also I have no hand without a back. Back and front must be one. In two different aspects of one thing. So, just like that, wisdom and meditation are the one thing but two. We have to understand this relationship at first. Otherwise, the people just sit in meditation 100 years, but fruitless. No? because everything is stand still, without thinking. But the people, have many illusions, even they are sitting. This is worse, Human mind is more delusive than just flower. Flower is always, stay still here. That is meditation. And in animal, the cow. Cow is always, stay still, without movement, move. They never move their, mind, even facing to the slaughter. So their mind are more calm than human mind. So they are much higher, stage of enlightenment than human mind. So, that, yes, sir.
A couple of questions.
Yes, surely.
An article I read about you said you are a Nichiren missionary.
I don't care the sect. I don't care. I have no sect. Yeah, I'm not a Nichiren, no. I'm not Zen. I'm not even Buddhism, no. Buddhist. I have no, I am teaching, talking about the truth. And some more? Do you have some other question?
The article said Nichiren missionary. That's
No.
That's not correct.
No. I was born in Nichiren temple. My father was a priest. But I have no more, that's a small sector is. Yeah. So don't worry about that.
Well, I practice Nichiren Buddhism. So
Oh, no. Some people, that's very small-minded people, have a school or a form. No, that is lack of reason, lack of wisdom. My teacher is the Buddha himself. Not Dogen, not Nichiren. Yeah. Therefore, I have no school, I have no form of practice. No, my practice is everything. Talking, sitting, eating, sleeping is my meditation. Yes.
Why must more people understand what they really are? Why change? Why do you teach to have more people understand?
Well, I don't know. I understand. Everybody understood it. I don't care. The people, other, understand or not. That is their problem, not my problem.
So you said more people will understand.
Yeah,
what they're
I hope so. But I think fundamentally everybody is enlightened from the beginning.
Why do you hope more people understand?
Oh, I don't know other people. That's other people's problem. So I understand that everybody, everything is enlightened from the beginning with the Buddha. That is the Buddha's enlightenment. So the school and the sect doesn't matter anything. No. Their religion is their understanding. Maybe they are belongs to them, but not their understanding does not belong to me. Is it okay?
No.
Okay,
Yes,
please.
okay.
Yeah,
It's
please
okay.
ask me.
But my question is still, do you feel good when you see more people understand?
Surely. I know everybody understood, on the truth, the Buddha's enlightenment, in their wisdom, not in their mind, knowledge. Knowledge is only knowing differentiation. Buddha's enlightenment is like this. Human enlightenment is like this. They discriminate. That is knowledge. But wisdom is different. Wisdom is knowing equality.
You meet someone who knows wisdom, you feel good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You are enlightened. I know it. So your question is enlightened question. So I have no opposition. So no problem in this whole universe. Knowing, understanding is invalid. Understanding is no value. The wisdom is only reliable. Buddha's wisdom and my wisdom and your wisdom are equal, no difference at all. That is true Buddhism. That is my Buddhism too. I don't need any practice. Practice, if I need a practice to attain, I don't need to attain anything. Because I'm enlightened from the beginning. When Buddha was enlightened, at that time, it was my, how say, enlightenment. If I am not enlightened, Buddha could not be enlightened. Because Buddha's enlightenment is Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, equal enlightenment. Samyak is equal. Buddha's enlightenment is universal enlightenment. That is equal enlightenment. Not his own personal enlightenment. Otherwise, the people do not understand Buddhism or Buddha. If someone understands, I am not enlightened, and I shall practice, something and attain to enlightenment in the future time. This person does not understand Buddhism. Because Buddha himself was enlightened under the Bodhi tree. Not in India. It was beginningless beginning. That is Buddha's enlightenment. At that time, all beings, sentient beings or non-sentient beings, were enlightened with the Buddha. So, Buddha declared, my enlightenment is Samyak Sambodhi, equal enlightenment, universal enlightenment, and eternal enlightenment. Yes, sir.
What about people? I mean, the Buddha appeared in the world because of people suffering
that is a big illusion. Suffering is illusion. It is not real. Do you have a suffering?
Fine.
Oh, no. That is a big illusion. Misunderstanding. It is a concept. Concept of suffering is not suffering. So if you know I have suffering, that is bad illusion, bad concept. So you have to practice true enlightenment, true wisdom. Yeah. Not human wisdom. Human wisdom is not wisdom, it is knowledge. You have to find out the true nature of self. True nature of self is true nature of Buddha. Buddha and I, or we, are the same nature, empty nature. Both are empty. This emptiness is called suchness. Buddha is called tasata. Tasata means such calm. Such calm. This suchness is coming to the phenomenal world. That is the name of the Buddha. We are the same. We are also the Buddha, but if we say I am a Buddha, that is that most of people misunderstand it. So we must say I am a human, beings, and I have big, suffering, anxiety, stupidity, and greed, attachment, anxiety, and fears. It is only, that's a verbal expression. But we know, true nature, suchness nature, Buddha nature. We, each of us, have three kind of bodies. One is Dharmakaya. Dharmakaya is wisdom body. Sambhogakaya next. That is compassion body. The third one is Nirmanakaya. That is phenomenal body. We have three bodies. But most of people forget the first two. Only the last one only. That's a phenomenal body, human body. But everyone has wisdom body and compassion body and physical body, phenomenal body. They are one, but three. Three, but one. Our wisdom knows that, not by knowledge. Knowledge is, we only, this is not that, that is not this, Only knowing a separated, side, separating side, different side. Yes, sir.
Would you talk about compassion body for a moment?
Oh, surely. Compassion body, this flower has a compassion body, because it makes people happy. When people see it and feel good, and it is very wonderful flower, pretty flower. It giving us comfort, or pleasure, joy. That is compassion body. So what is Dharmakaya of this flower? This flower is seems to be very pretty. Where is the beauty in it? Where is the beauty? Where is the color of the flower? But you cannot find out any, characteristics or substances or activities in this flower. Because color is your sensation, belongs to you, and the smell is your feeling, belongs to you, not the flower, okay? To the flower. Flower is empty. Flower has nothing with it. Flower has no matter, no smell, no color, no value, no beauty in it. All are human judgment. And after the judgment, people, produce their concept of flower. After their judgment, judgment is very is a complicated system in our mental activities. When we see it, what is this feeling? We ask it to our computer, that is memory system. So in our memories, we have the same experience, same memories in our mind. So it is not, that color of the fruit. It is not the color of the paint, not color of anything, but color of flower. But this color is a special color. It is not color of dahlia. It is not the color of carnation. It is not color from any other flowers. But it is color of some I don't know this kind of name of the flower. This is only color of this. But that is my in my computer brain. It's gives us that the decision, computer's decision of the computer. So that the decision of computer comparing with the memory, that becomes our concept. I don't know what the concept is. Concept is unexplainable. Concept is only such we can say. We cannot make it, again. Computer we can make it, that's as many as we wish. But our mind computer is not copyable. Anyway, that's this flower is pink color. That is my concept. When you feel so, that is your concept. That is, flower has no color. Only color is a reflection of some rays, very short. Yes, sir.
So this word compassion, right?
That is, not compassion. I'm talking about the, Dharmakaya, the wisdom,
Yeah.
wisdom body.
Yeah.
Yeah, wisdom body of the flower. Everything has three kind of bodies. If it is enlightened, of course, everything is enlightened from the beginning. Therefore, I understand or I know everything has the three types of bodies. That is Buddha's explanation. Yes, sir.
But isn't that conceptual? This is when you say you have a wisdom body, the flower has a compassion body. That is also a concept, and also
That too.
so
Yeah.
it is like the form of the flower, and it's like the color of the flower.
Yeah.
And then when you say it has a compassion body,
Yeah.
it's also
That is also the conceptual. My concept.
the three bodies is also concept.
Concept. That's right. Buddha is concept. Enlightenment is concept. Suffering is concept. Being is concept. Everything is concept. If we have no concept, we know nothing.
But doesn't it confuse? It confuses me to have three things when there could just be.
Yeah, it is only theory. Okay. Yeah, it is very good to explanation of our understanding. So we don't need to understand, of course. When we have wisdom, we don't need to conceptualize or to understand. But sometimes we need to understand it because many people wish to understand it. We like to, explain it to others. But my explanation is not transmissible to from I to myself to others. Everyone, yes, is okay. All right, thank you.
To get back to the definition of compassion, which was what the whole thing started off with that,
Yeah.
is the definition of compassion anything that gives comfort to suffering beings?
Excuse me, last part.
What is compassion?
Compassion.
Well, what is compassion?
I don't know. It is very difficult to explain compassion. If I have no concept of compassion, I don't know anything about compassion.
Does compassion mean helping others?
Yeah, we can say so. In the human world, that is the human term, meaning. Compassion is when people have suffering, I feel suffering with others. You know. When they are very happy, we are happy. You know, I myself is happy. I'm happy. You know, with
Compassion is sharing. It's a-
sharing. Yeah, we can say so. Yeah, we can say so, but we cannot share anything. Yes, sir.
Well, so what we're talking about here is that concepts could be limited, so that instead of saying, we look at the flower, we see the flower as a pink flower, we know it is pink.
Yeah.
When we say it is pink to somebody else,
Yeah.
it is strictly subjective. They don't see exactly the same way that we do.
No, thank you. No, that is right. You are right.
Compassion would be to be beyond thinking
Yeah.
of such a thing as when you see it, you waste your time.
Yeah.
You say the flower is pink.
Yeah.
Also, it's a waste of time because other people know it
Yeah.
by agreement.
Yeah.
Everybody agrees, even if they don't see it exactly the same,
Yeah.
except
No.
if you're colorblind or something.
No, agreement is no meaning.
Yeah, agreement.
Agreement is no meaning. You know, agreement is, I agree, but, we don't know how you agree with me. How? I don't know your feeling. You know, so we cannot agree with, feeling or idea. My understanding is intransmittable. You know, I cannot, make you understand my feeling or my understanding. So my, understanding. When you understand my understanding, that is your understanding, not my understanding.
So everything is unknowable.
Unknowable, that's true.
Everything is unknowable.
Yes, yes, I think so.
Would that be compassion? Would that be compassion? The understanding that everything is unknowable. Would that be compassion?
That's right. Yeah, each person understands, compassion differently. You know. Some person hit his head, on head. Oh, thank you very much, But sometimes they get mad. So compassion is, different. You know. So the judgment belongs to individual, no other person. Therefore, I said, before, that there is only one mind in this whole universe. Everything is my concept, just like Hegel said. Hegel's idea was very close to that idea. Yeah.
Wasn't it Schopenhauer that said that?
Schopenhauer, it's a little different. In my understanding, I don't know. That
Well,
is Schopenhauer's
The first line of Schopenhauer's book is the world is my idea. That's
Yeah.
That's the first line.
Yeah, he's a very, it's idealist, very
He
typical
studied the
idealist.
Buddhists.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that Schopenhauer, but, he's very idealist. Therefore,
The most famous person in Western philosophy is the Bishop Berkeley,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, he's a bit,
who he means.
No, Berkeley, Schopenhauer, that's the lineage. It goes up.
yeah, that's English, Berkeley. He's very famous,
He's
the,
most
the highest, brilliant, philosopher in England. I like his idea, but I don't know his idea really, but my understanding of Berkeley, is has many contradictions, in his theory. That's my opinion,
He's defined as a pure idealist.
Yeah, a pure idealist. That's right. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Is it true that if you truly practice Buddhism, that you will not even kill an ant?
Killing.
Killing even a little bug is not something that
Is it good or bad, evil?
it flows out of it.
Flows.
Out of practicing Buddhism, being non-violent, and it flows out of it.
He's saying that a Buddhist wouldn't kill an ant.
yeah, he can. They can. Some Buddhist followers. He was a general. That's a king of the country. He had to go to the battlefield. He was so perplexed because Buddha said you shouldn't kill. If he couldn't kill the people, enemy, that he would lose his battle. So he visited a famous monk and asked him, and he said, I had to go to the battlefield from now on. What shall I do? Can I kill the people? Or it is prohibited by the Buddha? The monk answered to him, do you think the man can die? What is death? Dead people never, living people never die. Dead people never die. Can you kill the people? Living people or dead people? Can you follow me? Now, living people, living men never die, okay? And the dead man never die too. So, when we can, or people can die, between living and dead, death.
But what about pain, inflicting pain? Because pain would be involved in the
Okay, that is another problem, okay? We have to understand, that's life and death, first. So, that we have no chance to die. Living person have no chance to die. Dead man has no chance to die. So when the people can die. So can you kill the people? King had no answer. Yes, sir.
I was really curious how you got from being the son of a Nichiren priest to where you are.
I'm not a Nichiren priest.
You said your father was a Nichiren.
Yeah, my father is not me. Yeah. So.
You say you were born and raised at the temple.
Yeah, I was born in a temple, and my father was Nichiren priest.
Yeah.
But I don't know his mental state, really. So he was enlightened. I understand. So he had no sect anymore. He was a Buddha. Do you know that you are Buddha?
Did you consider Nichiren?
No, not a Nichiren. Even you, I don't know, you belong to Nichiren or any sect, I don't care. That you must belong to the Buddha. Are you enlightened?
Well, I think it's a moment-to-moment change
No.
of life condition, and some people have that as a foundation.
Yeah.
I don't think everybody experiences life in a state of enlightenment moment to moment. I
Yeah.
think most of us are in a lower world.
How about eternally?
In
is
the
really-
eternal sense, sure, but in terms of establishing that as a basis of our daily life,
Yeah.
that's something different.
Daily life is the Buddha's life or human life.
We live as common mortals,
That is, you are not a Buddhist yet.
Excuse me?
You are not a Buddhist yet.
I'm not a Buddhist.
Yeah. If you have a human mind, that I call you human being. If you understand you are Buddha, enlightened, you are Buddhist, you are enlightened person. So, that you should be enlightened. You should find out your true nature. That is Buddha nature. That is Buddhism. You know? Anything wrong?
Well, I don't agree. I think that even Nietzsche and Daishonin, you know, the founder of that
No,
sect,
no,
said,
Nietzsche and Daishonin is some other people. No, I'm not a Nietzsche and Daishonin. No.
I understand.
No, I am a Buddha. No, not a Nietzsche. I am not a Dogen. You know, I am I myself. You know, I am a Buddha. Buddha and I are one person. I am you and everybody. You know, that is the same quality, same mental state. That is enlightened, you know, character, enlightened nature. You know, that is, you know, true Buddha's teaching. Therefore, I don't care that my father was a Nichiren or, you know, I belong to Nichiren. I was educated in the University of Nichiren, you know, Nissho Daiga University. But it is nothing, you know. It is not so important. You know. What is more important? What is my true nature? That is important.
Nevertheless, he taught to transmit that
No,
some way to
No.
other people.
No.
Chanting.
it is impossible. Word is, you know, not, you know, that's, it is too short. All human word languages are dualistic. No? It is very selfish. Therefore, we cannot express own idea. No? Even writing is limited, not a good means to transmit our feeling and thought. No? What is only intuition, you know, insight, you know, transcendental wisdom. That is only, you know, very, very invisible and a subtle, you know, means of, you know, convey. That is wisdom. Wisdom. You know? And wisdom and meditation, you know, these both are, you know, same thing. So we shouldn't, you know, discriminate it into two. If we discriminate it into two, it is not, you know, meditation. It is not wisdom. Yes, sir.
Is there anything in the world that needs to be changed?
I don't know. Do you know that?
No, I was asking. Idea of acting upon something to alter it in any way towards good or evil, according to concept.
Yeah.
Is there anything out there that needs to be done at all by us or as human beings? How should human beings relate to each other in the world?
I don't know. It is it. No, that is that. Yes, we call it the suchness. No, as such. Everything is as such.
That's the still point of meditation, where the whole
Yeah.
world meditates.
Yeah,
Right?
that's right. That is the true meaning of meditation. No.
So we could say that the whole world is meditating at all
Yeah.
now, right?
Yeah. Now, everything is in very deep meditating. You know? That is my idea.
So that in itself, that thought, that meditation itself transforms everything into that pure meditation.
Yes, yes, I think so.
So that would be the answer to my question
Oh,
of action.
yes,
The only action is meditation.
yes. Yes, answer is always, you know, including in, you know, the question, you know, always including answer. Answer and the question are the same thing. It is not two. When we understand the true meaning of questioning, you know, we can understand the answer. Answer is always in a question. Okay then,
Excuse me, what happened to the king? What did he do?
king,
Yeah, the king.
where is the king? Where is the king?
The monk, when king asked the monk what he should do, and the monk told him there was virtually nobody to kill.
Uh-huh.
So what did the king do?
Oh, king went to the war,
Uh,
fighting. No, he couldn't kill anybody.
He had to follow his dharma. He had to go ahead and do what he was going to do according to his direction.
Yeah. Because nobody dies in the war.
I don't think there really was a war.
You should laugh. Laughing is, everything. If we wish to understand, that we can't just laugh. Okay, next steps. We have four different types of meditation. Now, some people emphasize one of them, samadhi, for instance, and somebody, that emphasizes samatha. Some people emphasizes dhyana, Zen. Some people samapati. But samadhi is a general term of the meditation, concentration. So there are 108 in the Pali Pranya Paramita Sutra. Mahapranya Paramita Sutra, Buddha explained 108 samadhi. I think I know more. So we have emptiness samadhi, and when we chant a sutra, that is chanting samadhi. When we sleep in our bed, that is sleeping samadhi. Samadhi is so many, not 108, and maybe numerous. It is millions maybe. Each our conduct must have samadhi. Samadhi, what is samadhi? It is only a short, brief explanation. That is concentration of the mind on one single point of things, anything. When I put my mind on the top of this stick, that is stick samadhi. Yeah, I put my mind on this flower, just no other point, okay, just some, and my mind become tranquil and moveless. At that time, that we call it flower samadhi. Samadhi is a general term of concentration or meditation. So we have 100,000. So some sutra, Srangama Sutra taught Srangama Samadhi. And in some other sutras, before he taught Lotus Sutra, he taught innumerable meaning of sutra. In that sutra, Buddha taught innumerable meaning of samadhi. So samadhi is a general, broad meaning of meditation. But the next three are little, that's narrow meanings. That's samatha. That is the stopping. Character itself is stop, to stop, or stopping our mental activities. To concentrate the mind or to calm oneself, one's mind. Samatha by Pashana, that is Tendai's practice. Tendai did not, emphasize one meditation only. He always, the meditation does not exist without dhyana, wisdom. Wisdom and meditation are two faces or aspects of one, wisdom or one meditation. Therefore, he always practiced both at one time. In his, that's a practice. There is practice of samatha by Pashana, vipassana. That was Tendai's practice. Okay, it is same idea. Idea are the same meaning to the, dhyana, Zen. What is Zen? No, we have 4 steps of Zen. That is, Zen people hate it, this kind of explanation. So I omitted here. Okay? So, it is, the gradual Zen, okay? Gradual enlightenment. Now, Zen people hate, because our Zen practice is, sudden enlightenment, instantaneous enlightenment. So it is okay. We have no such, sudden or gradual. Enlightenment must be one. That is, eternal enlightenment. In the eternal enlightenment, there is no, that's gradual, enlightenment or sudden enlightenment. Buddha's enlightenment is, eternal enlightenment and universal enlightenment, not, partial enlightenment. Idea of instantaneous enlightenment, that is momentary enlightenment. It is not, that's universal or eternal enlightenment. Buddha's true enlightenment is permanent enlightenment, not, gradual or instantaneous. Instantaneous, that's that idea, accepted, before it was not enlightened. This is new enlightenment. Buddha's enlightenment is not new, not instantaneous. So, it is eternal enlightenment. Even Buddha came to this world or not, world nature is enlightened. Buddha found it, realized it, with his experience. That is Buddhism. Okay, that's, we have more explanation, but you have enlightened nature, so you know that. Next, Sammapati. That is Jan in Chinese. Jan is how to say, static, moveless, like that. We have many stages, but it doesn't need it, because that enlightenment has no steps. It is constant. It is permanent enlightenment. Therefore, those same practice. Some people emphasize sitting meditation, but that is okay for the beginner. You know, he cannot, just stay sitting always. He must go out, he must sleep, he must talk. So sitting meditation is, of course, is the conduct of enlightenment. But all other human behaviors, conduct, must be enlightened. So why should we, let's emphasize sitting meditation? It is only upaya. Upaya is a method, devices, tactful means. Beginner is very important, this kind of tactful means. So, all the priests, Zen priests, used the sitting meditation at first. Then they practice kinhin. Kinhin is walking and chanting. Chanting sutra with walking. That is the kinhin. That is part of meditation. And also, in cooking, in washing face, all are enlightened, conduct. They teach the student. Okay, any question, please? Yes, sir.
Did you know Suzuki Roshi?
Yeah, that's DT Suzuki or Shunryu Suzuki. I know both.
Yeah, Shinryu.
Oh, Shunryu, yes, yes.
I refer to his book a lot.
Yeah, ring the bell?
Yeah, Beginner's Mind. It's
Yeah.
So that's to always be a beginner.
Yeah.
Is something that's stressed.
Yeah. Really, we are not beginner. Everybody. Beginner is only tactful means. Everybody is very skillful, successor. We shouldn't, see the people as a beginner. There is no beginner in our enlightenment. When Buddha was enlightened, everybody, everything, was enlightened with him. Equality. Any other question, please? Any question, please? Yes, when we put a fire on the candle, it's in the windy place, we cannot get brightness from the candle. Just like that, our mind is very movable. So we cannot express our light of wisdom. So we must pacify our mind first. Then we can see the true wisdom in our body or mind. I don't know, wisdom is in our body or in our mind. Mind and body are one. So, and also, in the sutra said, Buddha said, that the fleeting or the moving, surface of the water does not reflect a clear moon, image of moon. just like our rough mind. Yes, sir.
I have another question.
Yes, sir, surely.
The former and the middle and the latter day of the law, there were certain practices that were advocated for those different times, right? And we live in the latter day of the law now.
We live in what?
Latter day of the law?
Latter day.
Latter day?
Latter day of law. Oh, I see. That's three period of the times of the Buddha's teaching.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Then
So,
what is
so then, some of what you're talking about is this all Mahayana, all, Lotus Sutra, pre-Lotus Sutra, Hinayana,
Yeah.
Where are you talking?
Yeah, Hinayanan teaching is already the past, is finished. In the first 1,000 years after Buddha's deceased. And the next, that's 100,000 years. That was the period of, how say it, period of imitation, period of imitation period. That is, Mahayanan teaching prevailed all over the world, and many temples and schools erected in many countries, and many scholars appeared, and wrote many commentary of the sutras, and discussed, and also many. That was the imitation period. The next, after 2,000 years, that is called Mappo. That is the last period of the law. In that, period, it's true Mahayana. True Mahayana is one, Ikayana Buddhism. That will be prevailed all over the world. Do you know what is Ikayana doctrine?
No, not
No. That is Saddharuma Pundalika Sutra,
Lotus Sutra.
Lotus Sutra. Yeah. That is, some, priests, Tendai, Nichirens, emphasize that kind of theory. That is theory, their idea. So we have many, different theories. It is only upaya. Do you believe it? I don't care you believe or not, Yes, sir.
Is there a special characteristic about the third period, the Mahayana period?
Yeah, that is in a world itself, in the third period. That is a very bad world, The people have very strong, proud themselves, conceit. And also the fighting and war, occur all over the world.
That's in the third period,
Yeah.
Mahayana?
No, Mahayana, period. But, it's first 500 in the latter world is especially worst, in that. But, that period is already gone, past. Now is a peaceful world. That is a Nichiren's, idea.
So what happens in the second 500?
Yeah, no second 500. That's all other. That after the first fifth hundred. Fifth 500. After the fifth hundred. 500 years. That's all. It is called Mappo in the endlessly. Eternally.
And what characteristic does it have? What,
Oh, it is peaceful.
peaceful.
Yeah.
Does it call, it means age of chaos, doesn't it? Mappo, age of chaos?
Mappo.
Uh-huh.
Mappo is the last, period.
This means last period?
Yeah, last, the period of last law. Last law.
Have we entered that period already?
Yeah, already.
When did that happen?
Oh, it is peaceful now.
Was there any point where we entered from the point of the warfare that you said it was all
Yeah,
over the earth?
yeah.
To the point of peace, is there
Yeah.
any point where we entered into
Yeah,
it?
in our past, in history, there are many, that delusive people live. So they had many troubles, all over the world. But from now on,
Also, now is the midpoint, now is the transition point, you're saying?
yes,
They think the age of Mappo started around, what, 1055 or something, that's what I read, 1055.
do you believe that?
Why not?
Yeah, why not? Okay, any other question, please? Yes, sir.
I don't understand. Is this predictions that they made or something?
Yeah, that's right. Prediction. Yeah, it is Buddha's prediction.
Historically.
Yeah, but it is only a prediction. Okay? Buddha knows everything. But what is knowing? Knowing is so reliable. Human understanding is a big delusion or illusion. So, wisdom is reliable, but knowledge is not reliable. Because it is called theory. Each person has their own theory. We shouldn't, negate others' theory or feeling. And we shouldn't have own theory too. We shouldn't attach to own idea, own feeling, own understanding. If we are attached to own egoism, it is a big, the war, fighting. It is strife, big strife. Oh, we have a lot of time. So I explain a little more. When we have no trouble in our mind or our body, we used to forget our body and mind. But suddenly we have some trouble, in our body or in our mind. We remind, oh, I have body, I have mind. So, just like that, when we have a concept or knowledge, that is a human, that's suffering. because knowledge is a big illusion. When we are really happy, we know nothing. When we are indulging in some conduct, any conduct, we don't know the time, place, self, others, anything. We have no feeling of enjoyment. We have no feeling of happiness. But later on, we remember the memory. Oh, it was very happy at that time. That is memory. Just like that. When we recognize me or self, that is big suffering. Therefore, when you are happy, you are not really happy at that time. When you feel some suffering, at that time you have no suffering. Concept of suffering is not real suffering. Concept of happiness is not really happiness. So human life is delusive. Human life is nothing but a stream, the rowing boat, on the stream. So it is nothing but a dream. People have a big dream, long dream, all their life. I'm sorry to say that. But to dream is wonderful. Human dream is very wonderful. Some other, lower animal cannot dream. So knowing knowledge is very wonderful for the people. It is not, that's true knowing, but still it is an imitation knowing. Knowing imitated, imitation law and life. It's okay. So, when you practice meditation or wisdom, both of them, then you will attain to the nirvana or enlightenment, Buddhahood. But it is not in the future. You have attained already to that enlightenment with the Buddha. But only you forgot it sometimes. When you are born in this world, when you cry, at that time you forgot all your past experiences and wisdom too. So you must remember it. And you must realize your enlightenment. That is your purpose of coming to this world. And one more thing I like to tell you. That the nature of the water is very pure and clean all the time. You cannot, defile it. Sometimes we have a big rain and all rivers are flooded and get dirt. We say dirty water. But it is not the nature of the water. Dirt, I think, mingled in water. So looks like dirty, but nature of water is always, clean and pure. When you put in the dirty water in a cup, then put somewhere quiet place for a while. It becomes clear. All dirt come down, sink down on the bottom. Nature of the water is always, clean and clear, pure, and no defilement. Just like a human mind. Human mind is always enlightened, pure, and compassionate, and wise. But in this very bad condition, time, space, the people, all circumstances are, do not match. At that time, human mind seems to be defiled, but it is not defiled. It is a temporary phenomena, temporary condition. You should believe that. Nature of the universe is enlightened, always. And any question, please?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you ever talk about the concept of the Mahayana of Maitreya Buddha? You talk
Maitreya?
About
Yeah, Maitreya. Do you believe Maitreya Buddha or Bodhisattva? He is practicing, to be the Buddha in the Tuchita heaven now. And he will be born in this human world after 87. Oh, that's a long time. Yeah, that's 76, 768 million years later, after he will be born in the human world. Do you believe that? Yeah, with that, some people, understand Buddhism dualistically. That Buddha had long practices. Before becoming Buddha. So practice is very important necessity to be succeed, the enlightenment or to accomplish enlightenment. But the enlightenment is not like that. That is a dualistic explanation. Enlightenment is nature of the universe. We have that's how to say practices. Some people emphasizes necessity of practice. That is a gradual enlightenment. Some people understand better this kind of gradual enlightenment. because all human, that's conduct are gradual and, that's attainment. When we study something, we must go to school many years. No, it is gradual. When we plant the fruits, we must take care of the plants in many years. Then we produce, get crop of apples or fruits. So we need time, that practices. But that is, in one aspect of the world happening. But at the same time, we must see the instantaneous. Everything happens instantaneous. When we see the sun, we understand that one moment. We don't need to attain to sun. No? We understand sunlight, instantaneous. When I take a look at this flower, instantaneously I understand it. This is a flower. We don't need any practice. So we have two ways, gradual attainment and instantaneous attainment. Both are, that upaya. Upaya means devices, tactful means. So depend on the people, we use both ways. But the wise men should know, there is no difference between those devices. Enlightenment is sudden, enlightenment is gradual, it doesn't matter. It is only the upaya, which means, tactful means. Problem is this. We are enlightened or not enlightened. Dualistic understanding or oneness enlightenment, understanding. Depend on our point of view. Yes, sir?
Is enlightenment emptiness?
Yeah, always empty.
Emptiness as a void or like
Yes,
nothingness?
voidness, yes.
Nothingness?
Nothingness, that's
Okay, I have something to share with you. I had an experience of
voidness.
while dreaming. It was like a dream or like a vision I had. I wrote a poem, and the poem goes, "Nothingness is the absence of everything I see. Life is an illusion, so-called reality.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond the realm of heaven and to the depths of hell, my consciousness was the only one that fell."
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Very wonderful. You are a poet, huh? You are really a poet. Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah. I like to, I like to get your poem. It's very, the sound is very good. Yeah.
It was like, and I also believe that in the beginning of time was the end of nothingness.
Yeah, yeah.
Was the end of emptiness or
Yeah.
a feeling of I felt a feeling of no feeling.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I
yeah.
experienced that. You know.
Yeah, very good, very good.
Non-duality.
Non-duality, yes, yes, very wonderful. Yeah, I like it. Non-duality. But also I like duality too.
But a dynamic enlightenment.
Yeah, that's right, dynamic, yeah. That the nature of enlightenment is not moving, not changing. But, it's that, enlightenment has, all movement is enlightened. Therefore, it must be dynamic, yeah. Some people understand enlightenment is a still state, still state, moveless state, but it is not so. all dynamic world is enlightened. Yeah. Human life itself, from the morning to night, all activities are enlightened. That is a true enlightenment. I think that's my idea.
That's the Buddha's idea.
That is how, when you think so, that is your idea. Yes, sir.
I feel like what I do is when you were speaking and what we're speaking about, I'm always going to relate it to the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path.
Yeah.
I don't take it away. Whenever you say something,
Yeah.
I always keep that in mind as well as part of the whole methodology.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yeah, I think so. That when I talk the nirvana or enlightenment, one world, suchness, oneness, but also we have to talk, that gradual, that enlightenment, and also dynamic, movement, and also Hinayanam Buddhism and the provisional Mahayanam teaching, all kind of teachings, because it is explanation of emptiness or suchness. It is devices. Wise men use this kind of devices because human mental abilities are so, various, so many, not one dispositions. Mental state are so many, not hundred, not thousand, not millions, or billions. Each person are, is quite different. So we must, Buddha, I'm not so skillful, but Buddha was very skillful. He taught, expounded his teaching, so skillfully. Therefore, he taught, 84,000 doctrines in his whole life. So he taught, that 84,000 of sutras, but most of them disappeared already. Just like that. So even we have no Buddhism anywhere. We can say all teaching must be Buddhism. All religion must be the part of Buddhism. All sciences, all philosophies, all art must be a part of Buddha way, Buddha's life. Yes, sir.
I was wondering if you could give me some insight into what was spoken of as being the middle way.
Middle way. Oh, very wonderful. Middle way is a neutral way, not this, not that. So people attach to the, it's either this one or that one.
This what or that what? What are these two polarities?
Yeah, this, for instance, good and evil, and east and west. Fundamentally they are one, but the human, mental the desire, human desire discriminated it, one thing into two ways, two opposite way. But really it is not true. East and west are not opposite. Only people think, they are quite opposite against each other. That is human point of view. That is a dualistic point of view. No?
What
But-
would be the ultimate dualism, or the
Yeah.
ultimate set of polarities? You speak of these different, the polarities in different ways, whether it be good, and evil, or
Yeah.
say material versus spiritual, all these different aspects of duality. So what would be the ultimate duality that would need to be transcended in the middle way?
Yeah, ultimately, the dual, the way, that is a neutral way. Neutral way is not a partial way. No, we understand this is the east, this is west. Okay, west and the east, are opposite against each other. No, that is human concept. But it is not true, because they are helping each other. When east disappears, concept of east disappears, concept of west disappears at the same time. When one appears, the other appears. When the other appears, one appears. They are just helping each other. Okay, one more please. One more please.
The way I understand it was he was asking for the
Oh.
ultimate duality, and it seems to me like you already pointed the ultimate duality out, which was wisdom and meditation.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
ultimate duality that has to be transcended to go to
That's right.
total oneness.
Yes, sir.
That would be my answer.
Yeah.
One more.
Yes, sir.
So with the middle way, that would be very subtle. That would have to do with non-attachment.
Very what? Subtle?
That would be very subtle, wouldn't it?
Subtle.
It would have to do with non-attachment.
Non-attachment, because it is not a way. We call it the middle way, but there is no way. It is a neutral, path. Neutral path. We cannot go.
If I can persist, if I can be so obnoxious, could I ask you to give me some insight into perhaps what this non-attachment is?
Yeah, non-attachment is no partiality. Non-partiality. Not, that's concept of good. That is a partial idea. No, idea of concept of evil. That is partial way, partial concept. So we get out from both, fixed idea. So we are quite free. We must be free from those partial, fixed idea. So that mental state is called neutral way or middle path. There is no path. The free mind, free, the mental state. That is called middle path. All human mind are dualistic, and realistic, and selfish. So it is not a middle path. No? When we are quite free from dualism, realism, and egoism, and our mind is free from anything, that mental state is called middle path, neutral path, or suchness. Suchness. In the Lotus Sutra, we call true aspect of all beings. No? That is, in Sanskrit term, it is Tattvasha Lakshanam. That is Sanskrit term. All are same meaning, neutral way, the free state, mental state. Yeah. That is a mental state of enlightenment. Okay, do you have any other question? Anything?
Just a question, comment about something sort of historical. Many people say to themselves, why is Buddhism and Hinduism a distance from each other?
Oh, no, no
In the
distance.
sense that, only in the historical sense, not in the sense
Oh.
that we're talking.
Yeah,
In other words, in
history.
the historical sense, there are people say that Buddhism was reabsorbed into
Uh-huh.
Hinduism.
Uh-huh.
And I agree with you from what you're talking about,
Yes,
in the
sir.
sense that there is no distance.
Yes, sir.
I'm only speaking about what people say when they are writing or talking in scholarly groups.
Yes, sir.
And I feel only that the question, I bring it up, is just because there are many people in India who feel this, and maybe it's a bad thing for them to feel this is a strange.
Yes, sir. Yes, you know that the world and own mind is the same thing. You know, but each people understand differently. You know, the people have very strong habitual thinking. You know, they have their world. You know that this is the same world, and many people are living together, in one same world. But it is a scientific world. The Buddhistic world is one mind, one world. So everything in this world is one person's concept. Therefore, mind and world are one. I don't care that people think differently or equally. That is their problem. No? When we understand, Buddha and Buddhism and the nature of people, in my opinion, in my idea, they are same people, same nature, enlightened nature. So I don't care some other people have a different opinion. That is their opinion. I respect their opinion. But not my opinion. I believe that everybody is the Buddha, enlightened from the beginning. That is, the Buddha's teaching, Buddha's insight. I understand. So that is my idea. Historically, I don't know. Historically, people, understand differently. Yes, maybe so. Maybe so, but it is not my idea. Some people understand that is human idea. Mountain exists by itself. I don't care. But in my opinion, is quite different. The mountain is my concept. I and the mountain are same thing. There is no difference, no distance, no differentiation between the object and the subject. World and mind are one. That is a very strong traditionally Buddhist doctrine in Mahayana teaching and also Ikayanan teaching. We have three the types of Buddhism: Hinayana, Mahayana, and Ikayana. And some other classification, is we have, that is Hinayana, Mahayana. In Mahayana, we have two yanas teaching. That is provisional Mahayana and true Mahayana. This true Mahayana is called, Ekayana. Ekayana means one, yana means vehicle. Vehicle means teaching. One teaching. That only Buddha's teaching. Buddha teaching. In Mahayana we have a Bodhisattva teaching. But through Mahayana, Ekayana, that is only Buddha's teaching. Buddha teach, to the Buddha. Buddha exchange idea with Buddha. Buddha understand Buddha. Some other people do not understand Buddha's insight directly. Only Buddha can understand Buddha. That is the idea, basic idea of Ekayana. True Mahayana's idea. Yes, sir.
I was just wondering how non-duality relates to the whole idea of love and, say, the love between two people that leads to even marriage.
Yeah.
Where they have to come together, the dual, the man and the woman
That's
come
right.
together. How does the non-dual relate to that? Is there any need for that whole process of the two to come together if they are already non-dual? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is the one inside the other already, and the whole thing is completed within the mind, within the one?
Yes. Two is one. One is two.
So the lover and beloved are all one. It's one thing.
Yeah. One is loving each other is one, not each other.
So
Loving self.
it doesn't happen outside the self.
No, there is no self outside. Everything is inside. No, the lover, no loved. They are one. Therefore,
So there is no action even in love.
yeah, that we have a lot of actions, of course.
Or say, no coming or going.
Yeah. Love is a big action, So it is a very big creation. So it is, that's universal conduct. Not only conduct between two. No. Yeah. Any other, please? Yes, just on time. Thank you very much. Yes, we'd like to. Do you like to read Heart Sutra? Prajnaparamita, Hridaya Sutra? Yeah, many people like it. It's a very common, sutra. That is Wisdom Sutra. If you like it, we read it together next time. And if you like to listen to the lecture of the history of meditation and the koan. Do you like koan? Koan is very interesting. I like to introduce you about 10 or 20 different koans. Koans is conduct of the famous Zen priests. Not only Zen. Some of them are, it's very wise men. Wisdom. Some koan is the expression of their wisdom. Meditation is not explicable. So, wisdom.